Well, kids, welcome to another episode of Rimshots with Sean right here on the Rock Rage Radio Network, brought to you by Barstools and Band Talk and Mapex Drums. I got to get used to saying that, but we gotta take care of the people, take care of us. This man needs no introduction, but we're gonna do it anyway. The one, the only, Mr. Robert Fleischman. How are you, sir?
I'm terrific. Thank you for having me on your show.
Well, I
Pleasure.
appreciate you doing this. Your people were great at setting this up. I want to jump right in. You've got this new project that you've been making the rounds on. Tell us a little bit about this because I've been admiring it from afar, but I don't really have some of the details.
Um, well, it's an all electronic album. No guitars. The only guitars on it are bass, and I had Chips Enough from Enough's Enough play bass on it, and I just like the feeling of and the sound of real bass on synth stuff. Sometimes it just doesn't get, I don't know, doesn't sound right to me. Even though there's songs that have bass on synth bass and they're cool, but for this it was just a little different feel I wanted. But I I didn't do any music for about 6 years, and all I did was paint. And I had done I had done an album in the early '80s on like I had like an Akai 13 track or 14 track or something like that. And and there weren't very many synthesizers out at that time. There was Moog and there was um, Oberheim's and the ARP. And so when I was really young, I used to hitchhike from Torrance, California to Santa Monica, California. And Oberheim had a little bike shop that they used to build their synthesizers there. So I learned about synthesizers through this thing called the Earth Catalog long time ago. And I saw synthesizers in there and I always wondered what they were and all that. So anyway, so I used to hitchhike there and I used to fool around with the synths. And then they asked me if I wanted to solder and stuff like that. So I did that for a while. And then I met a guy named Paul Beaver from Beaver and Klaus, and they did very early experimental ambient music with bird sounds and nature sounds and all that, you know, like running rivers and creeks and stuff like that. And so I met him and he invited me to his house, and I went to his house, and he had a barn, a big brick barn, and he had synths in there. And then he had on the lower level of the barn, he had these harpsichords that he had bought when he went to Europe, and he was assembling them. And later on, he passed away, and he gave all his synthesizers to UCLA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he was the really early pioneer. He introduced the Beatles to the Moog, so George Harrison. And I used to go there when I was, really young. And I used to hear him talking to Robert Moog on the phone and all that. So, and then later on, I knew Roger Lynn, who invented the Lynn drum machine, and he and I used to write together. And he worked with Leon Russell. So he was his guitar player and engineer. And Leon moved to California, and when Leon wasn't recording, Roger and I would record, and he had an ARP there, and I used to fool around with the ARP there. So I've just always been around these synths all the time, from a very early time, even before guitars. I got interested in guitars. So eventually, I did an album in the early '80s, and I did an ambient album, and I did like a little techno album, and I did them, and I never released them until '04 when CDs came out. So when CDs came out, you could manufacture your own stuff. So that's what I did. I did that, and those are still available. One's called Electric Raindrops, and the other one's called Kinetic. Kinetic something, I can't remember. But anyway, yeah, so I did that music, and I always wanted to revisit that and put vocals on it. And so when after 6 years of just painting and everything, I would go to dinner parties and people would go, "Hey, you got to do another record and all that." And I'm just going, "No, I'm satisfied doing painting, and I'm just not interested in I'm just sick and tired of the template of music in the sense of everything you hear on you go to a bar, you go to, you hear the radio, everything's real, all guitar oriented, you know. And I've played with some really fantastic and, phenomenal guitar players in my life. But so I after the dinner party, I'm driving home and I'm thinking about it. So I go home and I plunk the guitar and I just said, I can't do this again. I can't write another batch of music with guitars. So I thought, oh, I know what I want to do. So, I want to do what I did in the past. I want to write songs with synths. So, and during that time, my wife was she had cancer. And towards the end, she told me, she goes, "I want you to make the best album you ever made and everything. And I want you to move from the house." And I'm just going, "No, I'm not going to move from the house and everything." But after 3 months, I just went nuts. I just had to leave the house. So I bought another house, and my daughter and I moved in, and so we're here in that. What I told you was that I came home to my new house and I plunked the guitar and I just had it. But I just decided that's what I want to do. So I bought a bunch of synths. I bought a bunch of modules and just started recording. But before I had it all set up in my new studio, and I didn't have a chair, so I grabbed the chair that I used to sit in when I would hold my wife's hand while she was passing. So I put the chair, and the first song I wrote was called Great Lake View. And I live right across the street from Lake Michigan.
Nice.
And so the whole album is sort of like, it sounds odd, but it's practically channeled by her. I mean, she really just kind of steered the boat in a sense.
I don't think that sounds odd at all. I mean, you get your information from different things, and I want to say before we go on, the keyboard and synth stuff I think is great. I play with a gentleman up here in Nova Scotia. His name's Lee Fleming Smith. He's a huge Robert fan, huge. I mean, like he's been a fan of yours for a long time. I don't even know that he knows that he's a keyboard player, and I don't know that he was into or knew that you're into keyboards to that depth. So that's going to very much touch him in a nice spot. So that's great.
Cool.
I read your background, and so I'm very sorry to hear about your wife because that's a terrible thing. Anybody that's gone through that knows it's not fun. And
8 years.
That's terrible. But a nice legacy that she's able to leave something behind in terms of the inspiration for your album, which is fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah.
I have this vision of you. We've just met, but I've done some research, and you strike me as a guy who, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit in that part of the story, where you kind of do your own thing. You march your own drummer. You're not one that kind of is beholden to the business, if you will. I mean, you said you got out of the business and painted for a number of years. Is that accurate? Because you strike me as that type of guy. Just the vibe that I get from you is kind of like, I do it for the love of it. I don't do it because a bunch of people tell me I have to.
Right. I do it for myself. And if I'm satisfied with it and I feel like I've accomplished what my goal was, I'll throw it out there and run the flag up and see who salutes it. And I've been really fortunate because of my songwriting career. I've never really had to have a job or anything like that on the side. I've just been really blessed to be able just to paint and do music all my life. So I have like a 2,300 square foot industrial space where I paint, and it's about eight minutes away from my house. So if I don't feel like writing, I'll just go over there and mess around in the studio, and then if I don't feel like painting, I'll come home and write.
Well, and obviously you say running the flag up the flagpole. I mean, your voice obviously is going would have attracted people because, coming up, anybody that was a male that could sing like that obviously got on a lot of people's radars. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I've been pretty lucky that way.
I don't know about luck. There's I don't know if I believe in luck, but I mean, yeah, you would have had to work at it. I mean, there was a little bit of work that would have to be involved to get that
Yeah,
talent.
absolutely. It's all um, just perseverance.
Yeah. What?
When I was really young, I had a friend who had a 4-track TAC, and I used to go over there and write songs. And one time I had like 4 songs, and I got a meeting with Chrysalis Records, and I went to have this meeting. I'm sitting there with the publisher, and he's listening to my songs. And as he's listening to my songs, he's like looking over my shoulder. And so at the end of listening to the last song, he's looking at the guy and he kind of nods at him. And I had to find out who it was. And I turn around and it was George Martin, the producer of the Beatles.
Wow.
And he looks at me and he goes, "You got some good ones there, lad." And he gives me the thumbs up. And after that was like I walk out of that building and I'm on Sunset Boulevard and it's a sunny day and I'm just going, I'm going to be a songwriter. I'm going to be a songwriter. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a songwriter. So that's what that made my life. That gave me the drive, and I just took it from there.
Well, and I mean, obviously you had a stint in Journey. Everybody knows about that. We don't need to go into that too much. And the Vinnie Vincent record. You're probably tired of talking about that, but that record for me, I mean, I was just starting high school when that album came out, um,
Right.
and I couldn't. I mean, I was into that genre of music. I couldn't believe
Oh,
what I was hearing in terms of you know, the drums because I'm a drummer, the vocals, everything. It was just it was scary to be perfectly honest with you. It's
well,
how I felt
it's
about it.
like I've said this. It's such a bombastic record.
100%.
I
100%.
mean, I could sing that way, but I never had the setting where I could sing that way, and there was somebody on guitar that was just as on that same level. And so it was like a real matching tie and handkerchief in the sense of energy and just the wildness of it. And I always tell people when I did those vocals and stuff, I just felt like I just got a big bucket of paint and just threw it on the canvas, and just let it go, just blow. Um, but it's become quite the cult classic, and so and after all these years, and then he's gonna supposedly put out another album, but I don't know if that'll ever see the day a lot, light of
Yeah,
day.
we don't know that, but I mean, I
But I
I
mean,
can remember.
I've seen him post, songs and me singing on it, and he's got like his phone and he's has it on the screen of the Pro Tools or whatever, and I'm hearing stuff, and he's like teasing everybody with it, and then all of a sudden it just stopped, and he's just posting weird pictures of himself, and so I just go like I don't know if it's going to come out. I really don't. I don't really think it will. I just know a little bit more of the story behind it,
Right.
and I just think it's a shame. But after all these years, I would figure that he would turn my fucking vocals up.
That's fair. Because I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, it was like somebody he was making, and we're talking Vinnie Vincent. He was making a point about the guitar was going to be front and center in that album, and actually the first couple albums. So and I remember exactly where I was the first time I heard that record. I was sitting in. I'm pointing this way because it's the mall across the street from where I live, and I was with my buddy, and we were in his car, and it was like, what am I listening to here? It was just incredible. 'Cause I'm a huge Kiss fan, as you can see. Um, so James Michael, singer from 6 a.m. had a post. He did a spoken word kind of podcast the other day. We were talking about you and you in the music business, and it was the title "Why I No Longer Like Music," and basically what it was about how the creativity part is gone. Everybody's writing to algorithms, and they're writing for people that don't care. And in order to get their songs out there, it's just so sterile. And if I said to you, what do you think about that concept? What would you say? Because you strike me as a creative person. I'm guessing those are your paintings in the background,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, I get the feeling talking to you for the first time here that creativity is front and center for you. What would you feel about that?
Um, well, we're living in the times where music is looked at more like producing a movie now,
Right.
where you have all these different writers, different producers, um, uh, and you even have AI involved too.
Yeah.
So it's going through quite a metamorphosis right now. I don't know where it's going to land on its feet down the ways, but these things are happening. I actually was writing some lyrics, just not for a song, but I just was writing these lyrics, and I thought, what would happen if I put those lyrics in AI and see what happens, And so, I put it in, and the AI brings it back, and it kind of gives it a different perspective and everything, and it's kind of interesting. It's just, you're like playing with a robot.
Yep. Yep.
So it's interesting. It's interesting, but I don't find it to be truly organic and from the soul.
Well, it's funny because I'm an accidental podcaster. I mean, I'm in a band that's playing a bunch, and then COVID hits, and I decide, hey, I'm going to start interviewing my musician friends, and then you get into it, and you do something that you think is very valuable, and I don't know, maybe a few thousand people tune in, and somebody finds a potato chip that looks like Richard Nixon, and it goes viral, and it gets 8 million views on the internet.
Yeah.
That's the world we're living in, and it's unfortunate because an album like what you guys created in the '80s, I don't know that it would get the attention that it did now because there's just so much fodder out there to try to wade through.
I know this, and everybody's like, straight out of the womb. You got to be straight out of the womb, practically so young, and all that. But rock and roll has always been a youth market and driven by youth, and they found Elvis Presley to be dangerous, so there's always that danger part, that people get attracted to, like Bowie and all these little oddities and everything. People just get really sucked into it.
Absolutely.
But not to say that the music wasn't great, but just saying it's just that pill that is given to everybody that they find it dangerous. Then they kind of open up their eyes and want to peek at the accident or whatever.
So you mentioned, you've had a songwriting career, which is, few people get to do that. I mean, they get to sing other people's songs, or maybe they write some songs. They don't go that far. So, there's certainly that. But has there ever been a time where you've put something out, or you've gone to pitch something, and somebody's familiar with your past work, like say Vinnie Vincent Invasion? They go, we don't like this, go write that, and kind of forcing you or pigeonholing you into a corner. Has that ever happened to you?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I've had that situation where I've done music for commercials or some sort of movie or something like that, but not like, say, go and write this kind of song or anything like that. I've never really been pushed in that situation. Usually, if it does happen, they'll just go through my catalog of stuff and they go, "Oh, that might work," or "This might work," or whatever. Um, Before Vinnie Vincent, I think, or after Vinnie Vincent, I was with Almo Irving Publishing, and they were part of A&M Records, and I was a staff writer there for about 3 years.
Wow.
So I wrote a lot of songs. I had to write like 10 songs for the year, which I could do pretty quickly. So I had that experience, and I wrote some songs with Paul Williams. and I remember Melissa Manchester was signed there also, and um, it was a great time for me because I just was the songwriter, and I had my own little office, and it was great, and I loved it.
It's amazing talking about that side of I had the opportunity last week to have a chat with Charlie Midnight, and he wrote for
Who's
Barbara.
he?
Well, he wrote for
Oh,
Barbara Streisand, and he wrote
oh,
for
okay.
and he came up in kind of the late '70s, '80s type thing, and I'll be honest with you, when his management sent me the thing, I was like, well, I should know this guy, and I was like, okay, I felt insulted, or actually, I felt embarrassed that I didn't. And then when I looked at his work, it was wow, like just who he
Yeah.
wrote for and what he wrote. And then I looked at some of your stuff, and I mean, I knew the Journey connection, but you had some stuff that you did with them that made it on, a version of it made it on different sorts of things. Was there other songs that you had that were out there that maybe wound up with people that might not be as, I guess, common knowledge to people?
I wrote a song for a long time ago for a band from New York called the Rods.
I know the Rods really well. Carl.
Yeah, so they did a song of mine called Ace in the Hole. So did that. Um, but basically, I never went out to try to plug songs to people. I just would write my own stuff. I've got quite a body of work. Each album's a little different from each other. I've never repeat the same album. I did one album called Dreaming in Tongues. It's all acoustic guitars and cellos.
Huh.
And then after that, I did another album for Frontiers. I did one like that for him, that jerk. Um, so yeah, that guy can go piss off some hard.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I did an album for him, which I really didn't like. He kept saying, I want it to be like Journey. I want it to be like Journey. And it's like, I've already did fucking Journey. And so then they took the album away from me, and then they had people, reproduce it and all that stuff. And I just hated it. I just hated it. Um, and then I had a band called The Sky that I really loved. The first album's called The Sky. The first album is very garage sounding, very raw. And then the second Sky album is very produced. And I did another one called Look at the Dream. I got some good traction on the radio with that. Um, just a lot of stuff. I got quite a body of work, and no album is the same, the same. It's all everyone is different in some sense.
Well, and I mean, I heard some of the other stuff, and I mean, is the 15-year-old kid that heard that Vinnie Vincent album, and I'm going like, that's what he is. And I hear but I hear the other stuff, and you're right. You don't get pigeonholed. You don't get kind of put into a place. And what I
No,
like about what you do.
yeah, I just bands get signed and then they put a record out, and if it gets some success, and then they end up trying to repeat the same process,
Right.
and they don't go any further than that. And then when they do the second album, and it's like it's like the first album, and there's no gap or anything or any creative growing going on, and to me, it's like, why repeat the same thing? You got an opportunity. You've been, as like the first album, they've probably been living with it for 3 years, playing the same stuff, and then they get, so now why don't you just, put on a more of a creative hat and see where that takes you, but still having your element there, but just kind of rearrange the furniture a bit instead of giving you the same setting.
Absolutely. So you get the album out, and I'm going to ask the question. I think I know what the answer is, but I'm not going to answer for you. But in terms of success and what it looks like for you with that album coming out, I mean, obviously, your wife was a major part of
Influence.
that. and influence and whatnot. But what is there a success? Like, is there for Robert Fleischman? Is there a success marker for that album? If it hits this, it's successful.
The success for it is taking it from A to Z, and completing it, and feeling like, for me, it's the most adventurous album I've ever done. It's totally left of center, and I think it's got a real artistic flair to it. And I love the fact that I did all synths on it, and it has a color that no other album I've heard in some long time has.
I want to ask you a question here. It's again, I think I know the answer, but I just from talking with you, I feel I need it. Your sphere of influence and the people in your life that you hang out with and trust, and are they music people from the music business, or are they people outside of the music business?
Mostly people outside of the music
Yeah.
business. The only person I talk to a lot and see is Chip. Chip's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. We Chip's going to have a new album coming out, and there's a song on there that I sang on his album. So his single is going to be the album that on his album is going to be the song that I sang on. It's called Shine, and it's Donnie V and a guy named James Fox and Chip, and then there's a guest guitarist that I haven't worked with in many years.
Oh wow.
And this recording was done in 1993.
Oh wow.
And it was lost. And when I first met Chip, he says, I got this song, and so and so's on it, and I'm looking for it, and when I find it, I want you to sing on it. So we found it about maybe 5 months ago, and he sent it to me, and I wrote the lyrics and the melody to it, and then a couple of weeks later, I went in and recorded it, and it's going to be coming out pretty soon, but I think it's going to get a lot of attention from a certain camp.
A certain camp. Well, we will, we can't say anything, but I'll look forward to watching for that, because Chip's a guy who they call it the 6 degrees of separation. I've talked to people that he's either produced or worked with. And a good friend of mine does some PR work for him. I've never had the opportunity, but everything I hear about that man is nothing but positive. So that sounds like a good match there.
He's a joy. He's quite the character.
Before we wrap it up, sir, is there any business we can do for you beyond the album, or are you do you do anything with your paintings in terms of shows and anything like that?
Yeah, I have 2 galleries that represent me. One in Hinsdale, Illinois, and one in West Palm Beach. And I'm talking to a few in LA right now, and expanding. But I got the album here.
Oh, nice.
And so it's vinyl, double album, because I couldn't get it all on one disc. And here's the fold out.
See, that's what we're missing these days, right? I mean, like that product that we used to get.
Yeah, I mean, in the old days, you just like get that album and you just like sink right into it,
Yep.
And there's the yellow vinyl.
Wow. That is amazing.
And let me see, got the other disc, and that's beautiful blue.
That's incredible. So if people want to get their hands on that, where do I send them?
You go to robertfleischman.com, and you can get it there. And let me see, what else do I have here? Oh, and then there's a poster.
Oh wow, that's so awesome.
And then the lyrics on the back of it. And It's all very glossy, like those old English albums, like in the
Absolutely.
'60s. That photographic shine, it's all done like that. It's it was expensive to do, but it's like you know, if you're gonna do it right,
Oh man, you're right. I found a copy of Black Sabbath Heaven and Hell still in the wrapper, and I've not opened it. I know
Wow.
it's in there, but it's like no, I just want to leave it sealed up. And when you get those things, it's incredible because that's the quality that used to happen in the music business back in the day.
I know, and it's now we're reduced to this,
Right.
a little
That's still
CD, but
impressive
even
though.
even CDs are going.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't have all the new cars. There's no CD player in them,
I know.
all the new cars that are being put out now are going to have Dolby Atmos.
Wow,
So Dolby Atmos is going to be the standard in a few years or so. So I did this album in Dolby Atmos also. So if you go to YouTube Music, you can hear it in Dolby Atmos. And if you have Atmos headphones, then it's quite the experience.
incredible. Mr.
So
Fletcher, I want to thank you for this. It was an absolute pleasure. I always say when I have the opportunity to talk to somebody and meet somebody that I grew up listening to, and they're a nice person, as opposed to being a complete arsehole. And you certainly are not. You were a gentleman, sir. And
thank you.
I truly appreciate your time, and I look forward to hearing this record. And best of luck going forward, my friend.
Thank you. Please do listen to it.
Absolutely. We are
All
back
right.
after this.
Thank you very much. Pleasure being here. And thanks, people like you, I really appreciate it because you guys champion people's music and we need, that. And the radio doesn't give artists any justice or anything. But when artists come on to shows like yourself, they get a chance to, express themselves, get feedback, get to meet, someone like yourself. And so thank you very much. I really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, sir. We are back after this.
Okay, take care.